Ferrari confirms worst-kept secret after season-defining Lewis Hamilton disqualification. Ferrari told to wake up as new Lewis Hamilton replacement option emerges. Vasseur exposes McLaren boon as Ferrari, and Red Bull distracted by F1 rumors. You thought Ferrari had its future secured with Lewis Hamilton, that the most decorated driver in modern Formula One would carry the Scuderia back to glory. But what if I told you? Voices from the very top of the sport are already saying Ferrari needs to wake up, because Hamilton's replacement might already be here, and his name is Gabriel Bortoleto. This could change everything, because Bortoleto isn't just another rookie, he's the Brazilian rising star, a driver who has followed the same meteoric path as Oscar Piastri, back-to-back titles in F3 and F2, now proving himself immediately in Formula One. And here's the twist, the man calling for Ferrari to take him seriously is none other than Bernie Ecclestone. Yes, the 94-year-old former Supremo of Formula One, a man with deep ties to Brazil, is publicly urging Ferrari to look beyond Hamilton and toward the future. Let's dive into the evidence. Hamilton's move to Ferrari was one of the most seismic transfers in F1 history, leaving Mercedes after 12 years to join Maranello. But the fairy tale has been anything but smooth. In his first 14 races in red, Hamilton hasn't stood on the podium once. The low point came in Hungary when he qualified a distant 12th, while Charles Leclerc put the other Ferrari on pole. In the heat of frustration, Hamilton called himself useless, absolutely useless. He even hinted Ferrari should consider replacing him, adding, "There's a lot going on in the background that's not great." At the same time, a young Brazilian has been quietly stealing headlines. Gabriel Bortoleto, just 20 years old, managed by Fernando Alonso himself, has already scored points in 3 of the last 4 races for Sauber. He's doing this in a midfield car, a team preparing to transition into Audi alongside veteran Nico Hülkenberg. And according to Ecclestone, Bortoleto is worth his weight in gold. Ecclestone told the Swiss-German press, Bortoleto's strong performances in a midfield team like Sauber should really wake Ferrari up now. The next driver question for the Italians needs to be resolved with the Brazilian. And it's not just Bernie. Fernando Alonso went further, calling Bortoleto the best rookie of this generation. His words, "If he was English and finished 6th in a Sauber, he'd be in all the news. What he does is exceptional." And here's why this matters for the championship. Ferrari sits at a crossroads. Charles Leclerc delivering poles and podiums, while Hamilton struggles to adapt. Meanwhile, the driver market is exploding. McLaren is surging with Piastri and Norris. Mercedes is grooming Antonelli for the future. Red Bull faces its own chaos after Horner's departure and Verstappen's uncertain future. If Ferrari doesn't act decisively, they risk being left behind in Formula One's next-generation power shift. And Bortoleto could be the missing piece, a chance to bring back Brazilian magic to Maranello, something not seen since Felipe Massa, and, before him, Ayrton Senna's legacy of what could have been. But inside Ferrari, the storm is real. Fred Vasseur, the man tasked with steering the Scuderia, admitted Hamilton sometimes exaggerates the problems he sees in the car. He even said Hamilton's emotional reactions make things worse for the team, creating waves that spread through Maranello. The message Hamilton sends to the media, frustration, despair, even self-doubt, doesn't just hurt him, it hurts Ferrari. Vasseur tried to downplay it, saying, "By the time he comes into the briefing room, he's usually calmed down again. That's just his way. For me, it's no big deal. But make no mistake, when your star driver is calling himself useless and your team boss is forced to defend him in public, the harmony inside the Scuderia is fragile at best." And this is where the legacy question comes in. Hamilton is a 7-time world champion, a driver with 103 race wins, a living icon who came to Ferrari to chase history, to do what even Senna and Alonso never could, win in red. But Ferrari also carries its own legacy, one of national pride, of generations waiting for the next great champion. Imagine the symbolism. Hamilton, the veteran, bowing out in 2026, and a young Brazilian carrying the flag once lifted by Senna, stepping into his seat. For Ferrari, it's not just about lap times. It's about identity. It's about the future. Of course, nothing is guaranteed. Hamilton still has a contract that may allow him to extend until 2027, leaving Ferrari with little say in the matter. He might retire or he might fight on. And Bortoleto, for all his brilliance, is still a rookie. Shining at Sauber is one thing, leading Ferrari is another. The risks are enormous, but the opportunity even bigger. So here's the question. Should Ferrari really start preparing for life after Hamilton? Is Gabriel Bortoleto the heir to the Red Throne, the driver who could finally awaken Maranello's dream? Or would moving on too soon risk tearing apart everything Ferrari is building with Hamilton? You thought Ferrari's nightmare in 2025 was just about bad luck, that Hamilton's disqualification in China was a freak accident, a one-off technical glitch. But what if I told you it was actually the moment that forced Ferrari to rewrite its entire season? And here's the twist. Fred Vasseur has finally admitted it. Hamilton's disqualification didn't just cost points, it changed Ferrari's philosophy. They had to raise the car's ride height, sacrificing raw speed to protect themselves from another scandal. This could change everything, because every millimeter of ride height is worth positions on the grid. Let's dive into the facts. Ferrari entered 2025 full of hope, just 14 points behind McLaren in the 2024 Constructors' fight. They gambled with a brand new car concept for the last year of the current regulations. But already in Australia, disaster struck. The floor of the SF25 was running too low. Then came China. Lewis Hamilton crossed the line first in the sprint, from pole, showing flashes of his greatness. But 24 hours later, the dream collapsed. He was disqualified for excessive plank wear. To make matters worse, Charles Leclerc was also excluded for running underweight. It wasn't just embarrassment, it was humiliation on a global stage. Since then, Ferrari has been forced to run higher ride heights, instructing their drivers to lift and coast on straights, desperately trying to preserve the car's fragile floor. A rear suspension upgrade was introduced in Belgium to save the season. But even after Leclerc took Ferrari's first pole in Hungary, his race pace collapsed, possibly due to higher tire pressures, again protecting the floor. Vasseur himself confessed, "Every millimeter is a position on the starting grid. If you don't control the height, you lose competitiveness." And here's the shocking detail. Ferrari's margin for error is so small that Leclerc's Hungary pole could have easily been P6 if he was just 2/10ths slower. Now look at the bigger picture. Ferrari sits second in the Constructors' Championship, but trails McLaren by a staggering 299 points. Instead of fighting for wins, they're forced to manage damage, protecting the car instead of unleashing it. What started as a technical issue has turned into a strategic handicap for the entire season. Inside Maranello, frustration is growing. The engineers know the car has pace hidden beneath the surface, but the fear of another disqualification keeps them conservative. Vasseur himself admitted the team lost our way a bit. Quality issues, poor execution, mismanagement of priorities. And every time Ferrari focuses on one problem, another one appears. The culture of chasing perfection has slipped into one of chasing safety margins. But here's where the emotion kicks in. This is not just about lap times. This is about legacy. Hamilton didn't come to Ferrari to lift and coast. He came to Maranello to rewrite history, to do what legends like Alonso and Vettel couldn't, to conquer with the red car. The disqualification in China may become the symbol of Ferrari's turning point. Because if Hamilton can drag Ferrari back from this chaos, it won't just be another victory. It will be proof that even when the system fails him, his resilience still shines through. But let's be real, the gap to McLaren is enormous. The upgrades haven't delivered a miracle. And even with Hamilton's experience and Leclerc's speed, Ferrari might simply not have enough time left in 2025. If they fix the floor issue, they lose development elsewhere. If they chase qualifying pace, they risk disqualification again. It's a constant tightrope. One mistake, and the season collapses further. So here's the million-dollar question. Was Hamilton's disqualification in China the curse that doomed Ferrari's 2025 campaign? Or could it secretly become the moment that forged the fire for an epic comeback? You thought Ferrari's biggest battle this year was with McLaren on track. But what if I told you their real fight has been off the circuit, against rumors, politics, and distractions that have shaken Maranello to its core? And here's the twist. While Ferrari and Red Bull were tangled up in endless speculation, McLaren quietly built an empire of stability. That may sound boring, but in Formula 1, silence can be the deadliest weapon, because staying out of the headlines may be the exact reason McLaren are walking toward a championship double. Let's look at the facts. Back in early 2024, Fred Vasseur made a bold decision, announced Lewis Hamilton's signing before a single lap of the season had even been turned. His logic was simple: get ahead of the rumor mill. Carlos Sainz, knowing his fate early, could focus purely on racing. Hamilton, though still with Mercedes, could prepare mentally for his Ferrari future. But fast forward 1 year, and the plan collapsed. The Italian media exploded with claims that Vasseur himself was on the verge of being replaced. Others whispered that Charles Leclerc was already considering walking away from Ferrari. Meanwhile, Red Bull had its own crisis. Speculation around Max Verstappen's loyalty, Horner's downfall, and an internal war between Austria and Milton Keynes. And through all of this, McLaren kept their heads down. No headlines, no political storms, just points on the board. The numbers don't lie. McLaren are nearly 300 points clear of Ferrari in the constructors' standings. Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris are locked in a private duel for the World Championship, separated by just 9 points. Ferrari, once again stuck in the shadows, fighting rumors instead of rivals. And the cruel irony? Every headline about instability, every whisper about a driver's future, translates into lost focus on track. In Formula One, distraction is as dangerous as a mechanical failure. Vasseur himself was furious. He accused the media of deliberately trying to destabilize Ferrari. In his words, perhaps it's their only way to exist. But the reality is clear. When you're already fighting for every tenth of a second, the last thing you need is doubt creeping into your garage. For Ferrari's engineers, strategists, and mechanics, those rumors are poison. And for a team chasing perfection, poison spreads quickly. Think about Ferrari's history. Every great era, from Schumacher to Lauda, was built not just on speed, but on unity. When the Scuderia moves as one, it becomes unstoppable. But when it fractures under politics and headlines, the dream collapses. Vasseur knows this. That's why he was desperate to shield the team with early announcements and long-term contracts. Because this fight isn't just about 2025, it's about protecting the future, rebuilding Ferrari's aura, and writing a new chapter of resilience in Maranello's legacy. But here's the catch. What if McLaren's stability isn't temporary? What if it's their blueprint for a dynasty? What if Ferrari, even with a star signing and new leadership, still can't escape the cycle of distraction? And what if Red Bull, stripped of Horner and consumed by internal power struggles, finally lose their stranglehold on F1? If those ifs turn into reality, then the balance of power in Formula One could be shifting permanently. So here's the question. Is Ferrari truly capable of blocking out the noise and clawing their way back into this fight? Or are we watching the birth of a new McLaren golden era? One built not on chaos, but on silence, discipline, and ruthless efficiency? What do you think? Is Ferrari being destroyed more by their rivals or by their own headlines? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know where you stand on this drama.